"Excuse me, ma'am. You realize this is a restricted area, right?" The words came sharp and impatient, carrying that particular brand of arrogance only found in someone who's confused physical exhaustion with genuine strength. Petty Officer Candidate Miller stood with his arms folded tight across his chest, flanked by two fellow trainees who looked just as eager to prove something they hadn't earned yet. Fresh from another punishing session on the obstacle course, they were all lean muscle and raw energy, practically vibrating with barely controlled aggression. The object of their attention was an elderly woman kneeling peacefully among a small patch of carefully tended flowers beside the weathered concrete of a Coronado training barracks. Her hair formed a soft silver halo around her weathered face, and she wore simple denim overalls over a sun-faded shirt. Her hands, protected by well-worn gardening gloves, moved with unhurried precision as she coaxed a stubborn weed from the soil around a beautiful rose bush. She didn't look up. Her voice came quiet as rustling leaves when she finally spoke. "These roses need attention." Miller let out a harsh snort. "Roses, listen, lady. This isn't some retirement community garden. You understand what this place is. This ground is sacred. You need proper authorization to even breathe this air." His companions laughed, the sound grating against the morning quiet. They'd just survived another brutal training evolution, their bodies screaming with fatigue, minds hardened by constant pressure. This peaceful elderly woman tending flowers in their domain felt like an insult to everything they were suffering through. The woman carefully extracted the weed, roots intact, placing it gently in a small bucket. Only then did she turn her head, and her gaze carried a steady calm that should have warned them. Her eyes were pale blue, almost washed out by time, but they held a focus that cut right through Miller's bravado. "This ground was made sacred by warriors who trained here long before your birth," she said evenly, without anger. "I'm simply keeping it beautiful for them." The word that bothered Miller most was that casual "your birth." It landed like she was dismissing everything he was, everything he was struggling to become. His jaw clenched. "Don't patronize me," he snapped, stepping closer until his shadow fell across her small form. "You have no idea what this place means. We breathe air and we suffer air. And what do? Play in the dirt with flowers. What gives you any right?" One of his friends, a wiry trainee named Jacobs, noticed something as she shifted position. Her sleeve had ridden up slightly, revealing the faded edge of an old tattoo barely visible through years of sun damage. "Yo, check it out," Jacob sneered. "Grandma's got ink." "What is that? A lucky clover or something?" The woman instinctively tugged her sleeve down, and that small defensive gesture was all the encouragement they needed. Miller leaned in, his face uncomfortably close. "Let's see it," he demanded. She remained perfectly still, her eyes never leaving his face. She didn't flinch or shrink away, just waited with an unsettling patience. This quiet refusal to be intimidated infuriated him more than any verbal response could have. "You think you're tough?" he growled. "Being out here with the big boys, every operator earns a call sign, a name you get in the dark when things get real. I bet you've got one too, don't you? So what is it, old-timer?" "The Petunia, Predator, Rosebush." Rambo, the cruel laughter from his friends, echoed off the concrete walls, but the woman's expression didn't change. A deep sadness seemed to settle in her eyes as she looked past them toward the granite memorial wall, standing 100 yards distant, its surface covered with names of the fallen. "You have no idea what you're asking," she said softly. Her dignity was incomprehensible to them. In their world of explosive effort and brutal certainty, her silence looked like weakness. They saw someone powerless, and they pressed their advantage. Miller's frustration grew. He couldn't break through her calm. "I asked you a question," he said, voice rising. "We earn our names here. So what's yours? What's your call sign? Or are you just some random civilian who wandered in to play gardener?" The other trainees closed in, forming a physical wall of intimidation. They were young, aggressive, full of dangerous, untested fire. They didn't see a person. They saw an obstacle to their worldview. The woman sighed slowly and began pushing herself up, her movement stiff. It was the first sign of age-related difficulty she'd shown, and Miller took it as surrender. He smirked. "That's right. Time to pack up your little garden tools and head home." Grandma. That's when a new voice cut through the morning air, carrying the weight of absolute authority and the gravel of countless orders shouted under fire. What in hell do you think you're doing, Miller? The trainees froze. Master Chief Petty Officer Thompson stood 20 feet away, and he was legendary in the community. His face was carved granite, his eyes narrowed to slits of pure fury. He'd been a cell since before these boys were born, had seen combat in every godforsaken hellhole of the modern era. He moved toward them with a predator's glide, each step silent and deliberate. The air grew thick. The smirks vanished, replaced by the pale terror they usually reserved for Hell Week. I asked you a question, Thompson repeated, dangerously quiet. He stopped directly in front of Miller, who was 4 inches taller, but seemed to shrink under that gaze. We were just securing the area, Master Chief, Miller stammered. Securing the area. Thompson's voice dripped contempt. From what? From a civilian tending a garden approved by the base commander himself. His eyes flicked to the old woman, then returned to Miller with laser focus. I heard you, candidate. Every disrespectful word. You were demanding her call sign. Thompson's lips curled into something far more terrifying than any shout. You are not worthy to speak that word. Your trainees, your tadpoles, you're nothing. You haven't earned the right to wear that uniform, let alone the trident you dream about. He stepped closer, invading Miller's space. You want to know her call sign? Are you sure you're man enough to handle it? Profound silence fell. The other trainees stepped back, trying to distance themselves. Miller stood trapped by his own arrogance. Thompson didn't look away from Miller when he spoke, but his voice suddenly filled with deep reverence. Ma'am, I apologize for these children. They're ignorant. They haven't learned yet. He gave the woman a slow, formal nod of respect. To the trainee's astonishment, she simply nodded back. Then Thompson's attention snapped back, his voice turning to steel. He pointed at her forearm. You see that tattoo? Jacobs. You thought it was a clover? You're an idiot. That's the insignia of the Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. Mach V. So. The name hung in the air like a piece of sacred history. SOG. The deadliest, most clandestine special operations unit of the Vietnam War. Men who disappeared into Laotian and Cambodian jungles and were never spoken of. The forerunners of everything these trainees hoped to become. Their mouths fell open. This woman, Thompson continued, his voice dropping to near whisper, is Dr. Evelyn Reed. During the war, she wasn't in some clean Saigon hospital. She was a volunteer surgeon with clandestine forward operating bases. When a spike team got shredded across the fence, her hands put them back together. She went on bright light missions, those suicidal rescue operations to retrieve wounded operators and boaties from hot landing zones. She did it unarmed, with nothing but a medical kit and courage that would make every one of you soil yourselves. The trainees stared at Dr. Reed, truly seeing her for the first time. The wrinkles weren't just age, they were history etched in flesh. The quiet demeanor wasn't weakness. It was the supreme confidence of someone who'd faced humanity's worst and survived. Miller felt blood drain from his face. The ground beneath his feet suddenly felt unstable. Thompson wasn't finished. The men she saved, those grizzled green Barretts and SEALs of SOG, they gave her a name. When a team got hit, when they were surrounded and bleeding out in the jungle with the NVA closing in, the prayer they'd send over the radio was simple. Get us the Green Lady. The words landed like a physical blow. Why Green Lady? Thompson's voice was thick with emotion now. Because she was a phantom slipping into landing zones under fire that pilots refused to enter. A green-clad figure moving through smoke and chaos. There's a story old Sawgas still tell over whiskey. Spike Team Dakota was compromised deep in Laos, ambushed by a battalion. Every man wounded critically, surrounded, taking fire from all sides. Evelyn heard the radio traffic back at the FOB, grabbed her kit, bullied a Huey pilot into flying to the coordinates, and rappelled 70 feet through triple canopy jungle alone. She landed in the middle of the firefight. The trainees barely breathed. For 6 hours, Thompson continued, his gaze distant. She kept those men alive. She performed emergency surgery with a knife to relieve tension pneumothorax. Used her own shirt to pack a femoral artery bleed, all while the team returned fire around her, protecting her. When extraction birds finally found a hole in the canopy at dusk, she'd stabilized every one of them. Every single member of Spiked in Dakota came home alive because of her. Because of the Green Lady. Thompson turned his full attention back to Miller. Face a mask of cold rage. You stand here on ground paid for by men like that, and you mocked their savior. You demanded her call sign. Now you have it. Choke on it. Miller's legs felt weak. The arrogance that had defined him minutes before had been systematically dismantled and burned to ash. In its place was cavernous, soul-crushing shame. He looked at Dr. Reed, this small elderly woman, and saw the giant she truly was. Just then, a black sedan pulled up, and the base commander stepped out. He'd been briefed. He looked at the 3 trainees with profound disappointment, then turned to Dr. Reed and executed a perfect, sharp salute. Dr. Reed, my sincerest apologies. There's no excuse for this. She looked at the 3 young men, standing with heads bowed, unable to meet her gaze. She could have ended their careers with a single word. Captain, she said calmly, these boys made a mistake. They lack understanding, not potential. Washing them out would be wasteful. The commander looked surprised. The best lessons aren't taught in classrooms or on the grinder, she continued. They're learned through humility. I have a request. Anything. Ma'am, I want them assigned to me for 1 hour daily for the remainder of their time in Bud S. She gestured to her garden. This isn't just a flower bed. Every plant here is dedicated to a man I knew who didn't come home. This rose bush, she touched a deep red bloom, is for Gary. He loved his wife's garden. The lavender is for Mike, who said it reminded him of his mother's Texas porch. Her gaze swept over the trainees. Their punishment will be working this soil, pulling weeds, watering flowers, and while they work, I'll tell them stories of the men this garden honors. I'll teach them what it truly costs to wear the trident. I'll teach them the meaning of the names on that wall. That will be their punishment and their education. The captain stared at her with immense respect. Your request is granted, ma'am. He turned to the shattered trainees. You'll report to Dr. Reed daily at 0600. You'll give her the respect you'd give your commanding officer. You'll listen, learn, and thank God for the mercy she's showing you. Dismissed. The other 2 trainees practically fled. Miller remained frozen. He finally lifted his head, eyes swimming with tears. Ma'am, he croaked, voice cracking. I'm so sorry. Dr. Reed looked at him, her pale blue eyes holding not anger but profound weary sadness and something else. Hope. Sabent Doan picked up a small hand trowel and held it out. Apology accepted. Son, she said gently. Now let's get to work. I'll start by telling you about a young corpsman named Danny who saved my life in the Ashau Valley. Miller took the trowel, its wooden handle feeling both impossibly heavy and profoundly sacred in his trembling hand. He knelt in the dirt at the feet of a legend, a boy about to learn how to become a man.